about like when people get like frustrated in these conversations and stuff. So how do you approach that if you get in a conversation where like it's really hard to move forward because the other person is just like repeating the same stuff like back at you?
Okay, so her question is like, how do we handle when someone is getting really frustrated in a conversation? If they're kind of saying the same things over and over, and maybe even if we think we're responding correctly, I think that the biggest, or the best way to handle that is like, obviously what you're saying isn't being received, or what they're saying isn't being received. So I think what we need to do is clarify either our response or their position. A lot of times this happens for me with circumstances. So perhaps someone thinks abortion is necessary for poverty, right? And we'll talk about that for like 20 minutes, and I'll use my apologetics to respond, and I talk about how, well, I'll give you an example. So let's say we trot out a toddler, which is a fancy way of saying, essentially, we're going to take that circumstance, and we're going to ask that person if it's morally permissible to kill a toddler in the same circumstance. So I would say, okay, it sounds to me like you think abortion is really necessary because of poverty. And I agree with you that it would be really stressful and difficult to be both poor and, pregnant. So that's definitely a tough decision. And I would like to ask a kind of a weird question. So I say that, right? Kind of a weird question. It's gonna kind of like help them keep up with where I'm going with this. I'm gonna say, if a mother of a toddler, let's say a 2-year-old girl, is right here and the mother's really poor. She can't pay her rent, she can't feed the child, and she used to be able to do that. Like when she was expecting this pregnancy, she was really excited for this baby because she had a great job and her husband was supporting her as well, and they were doing great. But now her husband and her just split up and she lost her job, so she's really struggling, right? We're taking this circumstance and we're really putting it into a real situation. And I think it's a very respectful way of handling their question. So now we have this toddler, and I've explained this whole thing, and I ask, do you think it's okay to end the life of that toddler because the mother's poor? And I don't really think a lot of people are going to say yes, right? Most of you are going to be like, no, you can't kill a toddler. And I'm going to say, okay, a toddler and a human embryo, if they're morally the same as in anything where you're going to make a moral decision about with that toddler, we're also going to make the same decision for the human embryo. If they're morally the same, does it make sense that because it's not okay to kill the toddler, it's not okay to kill the human embryo? If they're being intellectually honest, they're going to say, okay, that makes sense. Or maybe you have to reword it a little bit before it does. But they're probably going to object and say, I don't think that they're morally the same, though. You're like, okay, that's fine. And then you explain why they're morally the same. And so that's trotting out a toddler. It's a very nice way of responding to circumstances. But going back to the original question, let's say I trotted out a toddler for a circumstance like poverty. And now they're going to be like, okay, so what about if the mother has too many kids already? Okay, so it's another circumstance. So in my mind, I'm reading between the lines before I respond. I'm thinking, circumstance, I'm going to trot out a toddler. But I've already trotted out a toddler in this conversation. So I might do it a little bit quicker, right? So I'm going to say, okay, so let's go back to that toddler scenario. Would it be okay to kill the youngest, like let's say a 2-year-old in a family of like 10? There's too many kids running around, the mothers are so stressed, okay, let's just get rid of the 2-year-old, it's easier. Or maybe the 15-year-old because they're acting up. I don't know, whoever you're gonna get rid of. Would it be okay to then get rid of the toddler? And then you kind of tie that back in, morally the same, human fetus, toddler. And so you're making these connections, and it should be really clear, and there's more to the conversation than this, right? We have to explain why it's morally the same. And they keep bringing up circumstances, This is when it's a good time to really use metacognition and like meta-conversation. So I might actually, and I've done this to people with circumstances, I'd be like, okay, let's time out real quick. I feel like we're like really stuck in this like muck here. And you keep bringing up a circumstance and I keep responding to it the same way, and I think we're getting a little tired of this. Are you getting tired of this too? And really like ask them. And they'll be like, yeah, I don't know why you keep talking about toddlers, it's really weird because we're talking about abortion. Like, okay, So then we like talk about it in a little different way. Or at least now we kind of both are on the same page more. We're understanding that, okay, we're talking about circumstances. So then I might come out right out and say, I'm going to let them know what I'm thinking. Lay my cards out on the table because I really want them to think the way I'm thinking. Every time you bring up a circumstance, I'm going to respond the same way. And I feel like all these circumstances are the same. It really doesn't matter if it's poverty or a mother's career or a mother's education or any of these other things. I really don't think that they're good enough reason to kill a person. And because the unborn's a person to me, I'm not going to agree with you. And then kind of see what they say. You know what I mean? So using that timeout, I use the timeout a lot in conversations. Sometimes I'll time out someone a couple times. It depends on how long the conversation is. If you're having a 2-hour conversation with somebody, we're gonna take some timeouts. Bathroom break. Okay, let's go get some food. Okay, let's go sit down. Okay, timeout. This is confusing. Timeout. Why are you calling this a product of conception? I thought this was a embryo. I thought we agreed on that. Why are you using parasite again? And then they're allowed to time me out too. Okay, timeout. Why are you talking about toddlers? This doesn't make any sense. And it really helps communication. Because when communication's not working, we want to open that